From the land of 10,000 lakes and just as many heartaches, welcome to the 301 Show. We're here to celebrate, commiserate, and maybe, just maybe, see a Minnesota team win it all. Whether you're dreaming of a Vikings Super Bowl, reliving the glory days of the Twins, or still recovering from the Timberwolves roller coaster, we've got you covered. This is the 301 Show, where the North remembers and the passion never fades.
Yes, welcome to the 301 Show. Took a couple weeks off here for the New Year's holiday, and we are back now. Got 2 weeks of news worth to cover across all Minnesota sports. Vikings finished their regular season. They're headed to the playoffs now. Wild continue to have the injury bug hit them hard. And then the Timberwolves are Timberwolfing, I guess. They're staying about 500. And then the Twins made a couple off-season moves. We'll get into all of that and more here on the 301 Show. All right, let's move on to Target Field Talkers. Got a couple of moves here for the Twins. The first one is that they lost Caleb Thielbar. He signed a one-year deal with the Chicago Cubs. Thielbar turned 38 in January. Since 2020 with the Twins up in the majors, he has a 3.66 ERA, 268 strikeouts in 221 and a third innings pitched. In 2024, he had a 5.32 ERA and 47 and a third innings pitched. So he is very clearly started to decline in the last couple years. So I don't think that this is like a massive, like obviously you lose an arm in the bullpen and that sucks, but I don't think if the Twins can replace him, I don't think that this is a massive loss. Now, that's the big question is, are the Twins going to replace him? And I think probably not. But Thielbar specifically being leaving is not, in my mind, is not a massive loss for the Minnesota Twins. And then the second move that was made, they made a trade with the Boston Red Sox. Going to Boston was left-handed pitcher Giovanni Moran. Moran missed the 2024 season with Tommy John surgery. In 2023, he went 2-2 in 42 and a third innings pitched. He had a 5.31 ERA, a 1.46 WHIP, 48 strikeouts, just 27 walks. So very similar to the season that Thielbar had last year. And again, as I said, not that big of a loss when you're talking about a guy who is giving up almost 5.5 runs over the course of 9 innings. The relief pitchers, the good relief pitchers you want to have with an ERA, sub 2, or obviously those are the great pitchers. That's what Griffin Jacks had last year. 2 or 3 though is where you want their ERA coming out of the bullpen, and 5 is basically a borderline unplayable left-handed pitcher. Now, if you're giving up that guy who in the last 2 years either missed a year or put up a 5.3 ERA, probably not going to get much in return, which looks like they got a AAA / maybe depth piece for the major leagues in catcher / infielder Mickey Gasper. He's 29 years old. He has 13 major league games played. He is 0 for 18 with 8 strikeouts. He has 4 walks. That is good for a 217 on base percentage and basically zeros everywhere else. So they would rather have the hitter version of Moran than the pitcher version of Moran at this point. And not a ton to talk about with the Twins. this week, like usual. They are just not doing anything. I'm sure there'll be a lot more to talk about in a month and a half at this point when spring training starts and some of those younger prospects, we can start speculating on who is actually going to make the 40-man roster and who is going to make the 26-man active roster. So that's something to look forward to here coming up over the next couple months. As for predictions for the Twins, nothing came off the board over the last 2 weeks. Again, as expected, there's just been nothing happening. So I've got 3 new ones. The first one is that Pablo Lopez will win 20-plus games in the 2025 season. Lopez will win 20-plus games in 2025. Second prediction is that Brooks Lee will play in 125-plus MLB games in 2025. So I think he's going to stay healthy and be up in the major leagues for the majority of the season. Then the last one will come off the board on opening day in a few months. I said the opening day outfield will consist of these 3 players. I didn't put them in a specific spot, but the 3 outfielders will be Byron Buxton, Trevor Larnach, and Matt Wallner. So Buxton, Larnach, and Wallner will be the 3 outfielders on opening day in 2025. All right, now let's move into the most consistently inconsistent team in the state of Minnesota, the Minnesota Timberwolves. So starting with the game on Christmas, they won that game 105-99. They were up by 28 points. The Mavs cut it down to 3 before the Wolves brought that one back up to 6 and won by 6 as the final score. Ant in 39 minutes had 26 points on 11 of 24 shooting. The next game was a couple days later against the Houston Rockets. They won by 1 point. Ant had 24 points in the game on 9 of 17 shooting, and he had the 3-pointer to win it with 23 seconds left in the game. Next game, a couple days later on the 29th, they played the San Antonio Spurs. They won by 2 points. This one is massive for 2 reasons. First of all, they couldn't shut down Wemby, but they shut down the rest of the team, and that seemed to be a great strategy for them. In 37 minutes, Wemby put up 34 points on 13 of 30 shooting. He also had 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 1 steal, and 2 blocks. So Wemby had a fantastic game for the San Antonio Spurs, but like I said, it seemed like the Timberwolves employed the strategy that UConn did against Purdue in the national championship last season, where UConn was like, well, doesn't matter if we guard Zach Edey or not. He's going to still put up a ton of points and do really well. We just got to shut down the rest of the team. And that worked for them. That seemed to work here for the Timberwolves too. But the other big piece was this seemed to be a great game, or didn't seem to be. It was a great game for Dante DiVincenzo. He put up 26 points in 34 minutes on 8 of 15 shooting. He also had 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and a steal. So maybe his best game here in Minnesota. I don't really know what his stats look like in New York, so I don't know if that's the best game of his career, but that again, seems to be the best game to that point, at least, here in Minnesota as a Timberwolf. Then New Year's Eve, they lost 113-105 to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander seemed to have MVP. We wanted to prove that he was the MVP over Anthony Edwards, and he put up 40 points in 34 minutes on 15 of 23 shooting. Also putting up 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and 4 steals. Shai absolutely took control of that game, and the Timberwolves seemed to just not really have a chance. They also played Boston a couple days later, lost 118-115. Jason Tatum put up 33 points. Derek White put up 26. Tatum also, with his 33 points, also had 8 rebounds, 9 assists, and 3 steals. So again, another one where a MVP caliber player just took control of the game and they ended up winning. Then on January 4th, they lost 119 to 105 to the Detroit Pistons. This game also, Anthony Edwards set his career high in points with 53 on 16 of 31 shooting. But Cade Cunningham also put up 40 points on 15 of 29 shooting. And the Pistons were able to come away with the win at home. This is both good and bad for the Timberwolves. Obviously, you want to win as many games as you can in the regular season and in the postseason. But to get to the postseason, you got to win as many games as you can in the regular season. But if you remember, the Timberwolves have the Detroit Pistons pick for this upcoming season, and it is top 13 protected. So if it is in the top 13 picks, that pick goes back to Detroit, and they have to wait until the next year to maybe get it. So if Detroit is outside the top 13, drafting outside the top 13, that means that is the Timberwolves' first-round pick, not Detroit's. And again, if you remember, too, they don't have a first-round pick otherwise this year because of the Rudy Gobert trade. Their pick from this upcoming draft this summer was used in the Rudy Gobert trade. So this Detroit pick will be the only one they get if they get that pick at all. So both good and bad that they lost. They're closer to getting a first-round pick in this year's draft, but obviously you still want to make the playoffs, and losing games doesn't help that. Then just a few days ago, on the 6th, they took on the LA Clippers. They won 108 to 106, where Ant dropped 37 points on 14 of 29 shooting. And they followed that up with a back-to-back game where they had to travel to New Orleans, and they won 104 to 97. Now, this is also one of my biggest pet peeves, when you have to play back-to-back games, and you are at home for one game, and then you are on the road for the next one. I understand, road trips happen, so back-to-back games while you're already on the road, but I understand that, But I'd prefer those to happen when it's, you're playing the Clippers and then the Lakers in LA, and you basically don't have to travel anywhere, or you're going from, San Francisco playing Golden State to Portland, and you just don't have to travel that far back-to-back days. I don't like having to, go all the way across the country south from Minneapolis, Target Center in Minneapolis to, is it Smoothie King Arena down in New Orleans? Whatever the name of the stadium is in New Orleans. Don't love those types of travel days for any sports team. I understand it has to happen more in baseball, but hockey and basketball, I don't love those types of travel days. But they overcame that and got the 7-point win. Looking ahead now, they have 3 games this upcoming week. They play tonight on Thursday the 9th at 6 p.m. against the Orlando Magic. Then on Saturday, they play at 7 p.m. at home against the Memphis Grizzlies. And then on Monday, they play at 6 p.m. the 13th again in Washington against the Wizards. Let's get into some team rankings here. They have played, or they are now 19 and 17. They've played over 30 games here. They are 3rd in the Northwest Division. They are 8th in the Western Conference, so they would be playing the Clippers in the play-in if the season were to end today. In terms of points for per game, they're sitting at 109.1, which is tied for 22nd. That's right around where they've been all season long. at that 111 to 109 mark on average. Field goal percentage is 45.7%, which is 19th. From three, they are shooting 37.8%, which is 5th in the entire NBA. Then free throw percentage, they are 13th, sitting at 78.3%. Rebounds per game, they're sitting at 43.4. Blocks per game, they're sitting at 44.8, which is both of those are 20th in the NBA. So you'd like to see those up a tick, but not the end of the world. You're looking more at the points for per game, only at 109. Now, part of that is due to they're just not coming down with offensive rebounds. So I'm sure if they came down with more rebounds, they'd be putting up more points, but still just got to put up more points regardless. Turnover differential per game, they're sitting at plus 0.9. So just under one more turnover than they are causing one more turnover per game than they are giving up, basically. And that is tied for 9th most in the NBA. Points against per game, they're at 107.7, which is 4th lowest in the NBA. Opponent's field goal percentage is 45.6%, which is 10th lowest in the NBA. 3-point percentage is 34.4, which is 5th lowest. Rebounds against per game, they're 43.2, which is 8th lowest. And then blocks against per game is 4.8, which is tied for 11th lowest. So their defense, it seems like they are doing pretty well. Seem to be around a top 10 defense in the league. Obviously, last year, they were the number one defense, the best defense in the entire NBA. So it is down from that. But I don't know. Again, as I said in the intro, this is the most consistently inconsistent team, I think, in the NBA. And they don't seem to want to do this day in and day out. And unofficial, this isn't an official prediction, but I would not be surprised to see Julius Randle traded before the trade deadline. I think that one's in February. That one's, I think, before the NHL trade deadline. So do not be surprised if Julius Randle spends less than one season here in Minnesota after being traded here from New York in the deal that sent Cat to the Knicks. All right, so as for predictions, we've got two that came off the board here. I said that Wolves win 2+ games in the next week, meaning before last Wednesday for New Year's Day. They did win 2+ games. I also said Ant drops 30+ points before next week. That one was incorrect. I was 1 week off on that, where he dropped 30 points in basically every game in between last Wednesday and now. So I went 1 for 1 on that one this week. As for predictions going on the board for the Wolves Den, I'm going to double down on the Ant prediction. I'm going to say he drops 40+ points by next week's episode. Also, my second prediction is the ownership arbitration will have a decision by March 1st. So they will, the league arbiters will come back with a decision before March 1st. I don't know which way they will rule, but they will at least come back with a decision before March 1st. And then my third and final prediction for this episode, episode 14, is that the Wolves will win a playoff game. That does not include the play-in. That is just the play-off. So in the round of 16 or 8 teams in each conference, they will win at least one game in that round. All right, now let's move on to the Nordic Report. We're going to look back at 2 games here, Week 17 and Week 18. The season, or the home finale, and then the season finale. They played the Packers at their last game at home, where they won 27-25. They finished the season 7-1 at home and improved to 4-1 in the division at that time. The Packers led the Vikings 3-0, and then the Vikings scored 20 straight points. Jalen Naylor, Jordan Addison, and Cam Akers all found the end zone. Will the Thurl Riker kicked 2 field goals. And I think the most important thing that came out of this game was KOC watching the team in the locker room celebrate Sam Darnold after. And Sam Darnold played well. We'll get into game ball here in just a moment. But the KOC, I'm sure he was proud of Sam. He had to have been proud of Sam Darnold after that performance against the Packers. But I think that video that came out, that he was watching the team, and I think what he was watching and what he was the most proud of was the culture that he had built in that locker room. Like that in my mind, if I was KOC, that is what I would be the most proud of in that locker room, would be the team chemistry and the culture in the TCO Performance Center facilities and US Bank Stadium. The fact that they are just so bought into what KOC is telling them, and what they believe that they can actually win the Super Bowl this year. I do not think, if you had told any honest Vikings fan back in August, J.J. McCarthy goes down after the first preseason game. You let Kirk walk, you let Daniil walk, you let all these guys walk. I don't think, if you had asked a Vikings fan, is the Super Bowl on the table this year? Not a single one would have answered yes. Honestly, would have answered yes. This team was not supposed to win 14 games in the regular season. Like this team, there was best case scenario, I think, for most fans, was 9 wins. It was a 9-win season for the Vikings. But that shows how good of a coach Kevin O'Connell is. And yes, is he a perfect coach? Absolutely not. Are there things that he does that, play calling wise, that I disagree with? Yeah. But overall, you can't say that this is not a team that's worth watching. It's not a team that can't go to the Super Bowl. This is a team that can go to the Super Bowl and is worth watching no matter who is on the other sideline. Now, for the game ball for this Packers-Vikings game, I have 2 honorable mentions and then the actual game ball. So first honorable mention, number 3 on my ballot basically, is Cam Akers. He only had 18 rushing yards and 15 receiving yards, but that catch to ice the game, to get that first down and ice the game, absolutely massive. And for that reason only, for that catch only, he made it to number 3 on my list. Number 2, the top honorable mention, just missing out, is Blake Cashman. He had 11 total tackles, 6 of them solo. He had 1.5 sacks, a tackle for loss, 2 quarterback hits. And again, most importantly, through week 17, the Vikings were 13-0 when Cashman was on the field. They were 13-0 through week 17 with Blake Cashman out on that field playing for Brian Flores. Like that is amazing. It was that they would not have been able to bring in, Van Ginkel, Grenard, Cashman, those 3 big defensive players, and then some of the Stephon Gilmore and the Shaq Griffin. They would not have been able to bring in those defensive guys if they had kept Daniil Hunter and Kirk Cousins. Just cap wise, that you couldn't have done that. So very, very smart move by Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah as the general manager of the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the guy getting my game ball here for the Packers-Vikings game is Sam Darnold. He went 33 of 43 for 377 yards. He threw 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He had a 79.9 quarterback or QBR and a 116.1 passer rating. So that was maybe the best game of I feel like I keep saying this every time I give him a game ball. That was maybe the best game of his entire career. And that should not go unnoticed. Now switching to kind of the downer of the week is the Vikings-Lions. The Vikings traveled to Detroit and they lost 31-9. Sam Darnold went 18 of 41 for 166 yards. No interceptions, but he also threw no touchdowns. He got sacked twice, and he had a 17.4 QBR and a 55.5 passer rating. Justin Jefferson had only 3 receptions for 54 yards, and obviously no touchdowns. Now, there was that drive where they went 3 straight throws to Justin Jefferson. One of those throws, the one at the back of the end zone, I think you place more of the blame on Justin Jefferson. Yeah, it wasn't a perfect throw, but I think with what we have seen Justin Jefferson do, he probably should have come down with that ball on that throw. Then there was the other one that sailed about 20 yards over his head. That one was on Sam Darnold. Those were probably the 2 best chances they had to score a touchdown. And the reason they were 2 throws is because the red zone or run game absolutely sucks. Like, I don't know if this is just a Minnesota Vikings thing, but they cannot run the ball in the red zone. But that being said, this game was 17-9 at the end of the third quarter. Detroit is arguably the best offense in the league. Like, I believe they are the best offense in the league. And this defense held them to 17 points through 3 quarters. It was 10-6 at halftime. They held them to 10 points at halftime. Probably should have been 7 points, but 10 points through 2 quarters is not that bad against this Lions offense. Let's not dwell on that too long and look ahead to some positivity here. The Vikings travel to LA to take on the Los Angeles Rams in Super Wildcard Weekend. They have played once before in LA. That was Week 8. And the Rams won 30-20. This game also may be moved to Arizona, to State Farm Stadium, due to the fires going on in LA. The NFL is still monitoring it at this point, but no news has come about of that since I have been at least at the time of this recording. We're going to do the final team rankings here of the 2024 regular season. The Vikings went 14-3, finished second in the NFC North, the 5th seed in the NFC. The offense was 12th in yards per game at 346.9. Points per game, they were 9th at 25.4. They converted 80 out of 200 third downs for 40%, which was 12th in the entire league. Fourth down, they were 6 of 13 for 46.2%. That plummeted them from around the top 10, I believe, to 27th. The defense was letting up 335.4 yards per game, which was 16th in the entire NFL. Points allowed per game was 19.5, which was 5th. On third down, other teams were 78 of 219 for 35.6% on third down, which was tied for third. On fourth down, the Vikings were the number 1 defense on fourth down. They were 13 of 35. Other teams were 13 of 35 for a 37.1% conversion rate, which was the lowest conversion rate in the NFL. As for special teams between John Parker Romo and Will Reichert, They were 83.3% for that was 35 of 42. The long was still the 58-yarder against the Houston Texans back in week 3. On PATs, they missed only one. They were 45 of 46, and that was 97.8%. Next week, or whenever the Vikings, hopefully it's not next week, whenever the Vikings get knocked out of the playoffs, we will have a 2025 QB1 discussion. There are, in my opinion, 3 options for them. First one is re-sign Sam Darnold. Second one is roll with J.J. McCarthy. And the third one is Daniel Jones. So, question of the day will come now. I'm going to ask you, which one of those 3 do you think the Vikings should go with in 2025? And we will discuss that next week, hopefully after a Vikings playoff win against the Rams. 3 predictions coming off the board over the last 2 weeks. I said first one is that Sam Darnold throws 2+ touchdowns against the Green Bay Packers. He did. Justin Jefferson scores a touchdown against the Green Bay Packers. He did not. And the defense forces 2+ turnovers against the Packers. They did not. 3 new ones going on the board here. First prediction is that the Vikings will beat the Rams in Super Wildcard Weekend. Second prediction is that Sam Darnold throws for more touchdowns than Matthew Stafford. So Sam Darnold will throw for more touchdowns than Matt Stafford. And finally, Harrison Smith will pick off Matthew Stafford in LA or Arizona in their playoff game. Harrison Smith picks off Matthew Stafford. All right, now finally, let's get into the Rinkside Rundown. We've got quite a few games to look back at, just like the Timberwolves. On the 27th, the Wild beat the Stars in overtime, 3-2. Gus Bus stopped 27 of 29 shots. Foligno and Brodin both had goals in regulation. And then Faber wrapped it around the net in overtime for the game-winning goal. Again, if you haven't seen that one, another beauty that you should go watch from Faber. Then on the 29th, they lost 3-1 to the Ottawa Senators. Levi Mellerainen stopped 30 of 31 shots. Gus Bus stopped 32 of 34. Freddie Gaudreau had the only goal. Now, these 2 results are kind of shocking between the Stars game and then the Senators game. Based off of the way they played, those scores probably should have been reversed. Like, the Wild should have probably beaten the Stars or beaten the Senators and probably lost to the Stars. But they did get one. They did go 1-1 against those 2 teams, so they came out with what should have been the same record. Then on New Year's Eve, they beat the Nashville Predators 5-3. Rossi had 2 goals, 1 assist, and Gus Bus stopped 43 of 46 shots. Now, this was also the game where Spurgeon was hit into the boards and had to be helped off the ice. And there is no timetable fully for his return. He did go on LTIR, though. Or maybe not LTIR. He did go on the injured reserve list. On January 2nd, the Wild beat the Capitals 4-3 in a shootout. Hartman, Rossi, and Trennan scored in regulation. Marc-Andre Fleury stopped 28 of 31 shots. And Ovi scored career goal number 871, which is 24 away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's record. Now, these 2, Marc-Andre Fleury and Alex Ovechkin, are 40 and 39 respectively. They are both future Hall of Famers, and it was absolutely amazing to see them go against each other on what would be Fleury's game-winning save in the shootout. A couple days later, on the 4th, they took over Carolina, played the Hurricanes. They won 4-0. Gus Bus posted his 3rd shutout of the year, stopping 21 of 21 shots. Zuccarello had 2 goals. Joel Eriksson Ek had 1 goal. Marco Rossi had 4 assists in the game. And Matt Boldy scored 1 goal and had 2 assists. So this game was absolutely fantastic to watch. They dominated that game. There was no other way to put that. They were in control the entire time. If we can get that type of play out of them without Kaprizov on the ice, imagine what it's going to be like when he is back. This past Tuesday, they played the Blues. They won 6-4. Blues had 4 different goal scorers. There were 10 different goal scorers in this game. Nobody had more than 1 goal. Blues had 4. Wild had 6 different goal scorers. Joel Eriksson Ek, Matt Boldy, Marcus Johansson, Zach Bogosian, Jake Middleton, and John Merrill all scoring for the Wild. Gus Bus in 24-33 stopped 14 of 18 shots. He got pulled 4.5 minutes into the second period. Marc-Andre Fleury came in and stopped 15 of 15 in the last 2/3 basically of the game. Another scary news there is Faber left the game with a leg injury. I have not seen any update on that. It looks like they are still evaluating him. They can backdate this injury if he goes on IR. Looking ahead, the Wild play tonight, the 9th, at 7 p.m. against the Colorado Avalanche. On Saturday, the 11th, they play at 9 p.m. in San Jose. And on Sunday, the next day, they play in Vegas at 7 p.m. Now, Kirill is on the injury reserve. He was put on the injury reserve. He is still listed as day-to-day, and they say it's a lower body injury. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it looks like it was a groin strain. He re-aggravated that in the game on the 23rd against the Chicago Blackhawks. So that is what it looks like for Kirill. But they did backdate his injury. He was listed as day-to-day for a while after that, but they backdated that injury to that game before Christmas. He can, though, be taken off at any time. He is, just listed as day-to-day right now. As for the team rankings, the Wild are 24-11-4 for 52 points. They rank 2nd in the Central Division and 3rd in the Western Conference. Goals for per game, they're sitting at 3.05, which is tied for 14th. Goals against per game, they're sitting at 2.66, which is 7th. They have 3 shutouts, tied for 9th. All 3 of those are Gus Bus. Power play is sitting 21st in the NHL at 19%. Penalty kill is up to 29th, which is so sad to say that it's up to 29th. They are 70.7%. Face-offs, they are 28th in the league at 47.9%, which I do have just a little bit of a rant about the penalty kill and some of the face-offs in just a moment here. But let's get through the rest of the rankings, and then we'll do Gus Bus rankings before we talk about the penalty kill. Shots for per game, they're at 28.4, which is tied for 15th. Shots against per game is 29.2, which is tied for 23rd. Gus Bus rankings, he is 18-6-3 on the year. He is a .922 save percentage, which is 3rd in the NHL. And goals against average, he has 2.31 goals against average, which is 5th in the NHL. So I do want to get into a penalty kill discussion here. Again, I know I sound like a broken record at this point just talking about it. So since the lockout, there was a lockout in the 04-05 season. Since then, I want to go over the Stanley Cup champions penalty kill percentage year by year. So in 2006, the Hurricanes won it. They had an 81.8% on the penalty kill. The 2007 Ducks, 85%. 2008 Red Wings, 84%. 2009 Penguins, 82.7%. 2010 Blackhawks, 85%. 2011 Bruins, 82.6%. 2012 Kings, 87%. 2013 Blackhawks, that was another lockout, shortened season, did not get canceled, but it was shortened. They were sitting at 87.2%. 2014, 83.1. 2015, 83.4. 2016, 84.4 from the Penguins. And the Penguins, second in a row, they were at 79.8. 2018 was 80.3 from the Capitals. The Blues in 2019 had 81.5. The Lightning then went back-to-back in 2020 and 2021. 2020 was 81.4%. 2021 was 84.2%. 2022 was the Colorado Avalanche at 79.7%. Vegas in 2023 had a 77.6%. And then last year, the Panthers had an 82.5% on the penalty kill. So, since 2006, there have been 3 teams that have had a sub-80 penalty kill percentage. The Golden Knights are the only ones that are below a 79% on the penalty kill. There's one since 2006 that has had a sub 79% on the penalty kill. The Wild right now are sitting at 70.7. That is basically 7 percentage points lower than the lowest Stanley Cup winner since 2006. Like, that is, again, like I have said, that is absolutely unacceptable for this team to be looking to win the Stanley Cup and be that bad on the penalty kill. Now, I actually do think there might be a reason for that, and it's because the face-offs, they are awful on the face-off dot, and on the penalty kill, if you are not winning face-offs, you are not going to kill that many penalties because you do not control the puck right away, and you have to go get the puck with one less guy than the other team. So they need to start, this all starts with winning face-offs in the defensive zone when you're down a man. If you can win a face-off and just get it immediately out of the zone, that makes the penalty kill a hell of a lot easier. Like, this is something that needs to change almost immediately, but it probably won't, and they will continue to struggle on the penalty kill and just try to outscore teams and wonder why, Gustafson's numbers are slipping a little bit. But what do I know? I am just a guy with a microphone. But when I am just a guy with a microphone and I can see that this is happening, you can bet that other teams that are seeing this happen and are taking full advantage of this. As for predictions this week, I had 3 come off the board. I said that Kirill scores 3+ goals before next week's episode, which would have happened last week. That was incorrect. He did not play in that many games. So I also said the Wild shut out one of their next 3 opponents. They did not. I was off by a couple days on that one. And then I said the Wild beats Nashville by 2+ goals, which they did. They won 5-3. So 1 of 3 on the week. As for my 3 predictions going on the board this week, going bold to start out, I said the Wild go 3-0 against the Colorado Avalanche, San Jose Sharks, and the Vegas Golden Knights. Then before next week's episode, before episode 15, Marco Rossi will score 2+ goals and or have 3+ assists before next week's episode. Then the final prediction, I'm taking it over to the PWHL, and I'm going to say that the Minnesota Frost will win back-to-back championships. They have looked fantastic, and I will get an update on them next week. But the Frost will go back-to-back this season. All right, so that'll do it for this week's episode of the 301 Show. Let me know about who you think is going to be starting, the starting quarterback for the Vikings next year. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my takes that I have given, and we will see you next time.